Hey, my name's Ben Whitaker. I'm 28 and I live alone in a small two-bedroom flat on the edge of London's Shoreditch neighbourhood. It's nothing fancy, the rent is reasonable for the city, yet the place has that comfortably worn-in feel I've grown used to. The sofa in the living room is an old leather thing covered in scratches from who knows what, probably the previous tenant's cat. The coffee table bears nicks and rings from years of careless mugs, and my bookshelves are crammed with accounting textbooks from university that I never quite got round to selling. The walls are plain white, no art or photos, just functional. I like it that way. No clutter, no distractions. My job is steady. I'm an accountant at a mid-sized firm in the city centre. I crunch numbers, balance sheets, track expenses for clients in tech and retail. It isn't exciting, but it pays the bills, covers the rent, and leaves me enough for the occasional takeaway or a browse around a bookshop. I don't chase promotions or overtime. I simply show up, do the work, and head home. Life is predictable, and after growing up in a chaotic house back in Leeds, parents always rowing about money, siblings slamming doors, I've come to crave the quiet. The rain here helps with that. It drowns out the world outside my windows. I don't party much, don't date often. Relationships seem like noise I'd rather avoid. A few pints with colleagues every couple of months is about as social as I get. The one bit of noise I don't mind comes from next door. Freya Lawson, my best friend from school. We met back in Leeds during our teenage years, sat next to each other in history class, and bonded over hating group projects. She's the kind of person who lights up a room without trying, always quick with a laugh or a sarcastic comment that cuts straight through the nonsense. After university, we lost touch for a while, but she moved to London for a freelance graphic design gig, and by some happy coincidence, her flat ended up right next to mine in the same building. It felt like fate, or at least convenient. Freya's place is a mirror of mine, layout-wise, yet she fills it with life. I can hear her old jazz records seeping through the thin walls, Billie Holiday's smoky voice, or Ella Fitzgerald's swing. It isn't intrusive, it's comforting, like a reminder that someone out there is truly living. She plays it while cooking or working on designs, and sometimes I catch snippets of her laughing on the phone or pacing during calls. It makes my quiet feel less empty. She moved in with her boyfriend, Marcus Reed. He's in tech sales, always dressed sharp, nice watch, that confident smile that borders on pushy. I've met him a handful of times, handshakes in the hallway, small talk about the weather or traffic. He seems fine on the surface, successful, outgoing. Yet I've never warmed to him. Maybe it's the way he talks over Freya sometimes, or how he checks his phone mid-conversation. Freya always looks happy around him though, so I've told myself that's what matters. They're building a life together. Who am I to judge? Everything changed one night. I was at my desk in the spare room I use as an office, hunched over my laptop reviewing spreadsheets for a client audit. The rain was tapping steadily against the window, and I had just poured myself a mug of black coffee. Strong, no sugar, the way I like it to cut through the fog. Everything felt normal until I noticed something off. Silence. No jazz from next door, no faint laughter or footsteps, just the hum of my fridge and the distant traffic below. It was the kind of quiet that presses in and makes you aware of every creak in the building. Then I heard it, a muffled sound, like someone trying not to cry but failing. It pierced the wall like a needle, sharp and insistent. I knew that cry. It was Freya's. Not the dramatic kind from a bad day, but the kind where you're holding it in so tightly it hurts more. My stomach twisted. What on earth was going on? Should I knock? Mind my own business? We were friends, but this felt personal, like crossing a line. Before I could decide, there was a loud slam from the hallway, their flat door. Heavy footsteps stomped away, followed by the ding of the lift. Then, nothing. The silence thickened, broken only by my own breathing. I stood up, still debating, when came the knock on my door. 3 soft taps, hesitant, as though the person on the other side was afraid of bothering me. I glanced through the peephole, and my heart stopped. It was Freya. Her hair was a mess, strands sticking out as if she'd run her hands through it too many times. Mascara streaked down her cheeks in black lines, and her face was pale, almost ghostly under the hallway light. She clutched her phone in one hand and a small backpack in the other, slung over her shoulder like she was ready to bolt. But her eyes, red, swollen, filled with a fear I'd never seen in her, hit me hardest. This wasn't the Freya I knew, the one who joked through everything. I swung the door open without thinking. "Freya!" Her voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry to bother you. I don't know where to go." She took a shaky breath, her lower lip trembling. "Can I stay here tonight?" 1,000 questions flooded my mind. Where's Marcus? What happened? Are you hurt? But I swallowed them all. She didn't need an interrogation. She needed a safe space. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "Come on in. You're safe here." She hesitated for a split second, then crossed the threshold like someone escaping a fire. I closed the door behind her, locked it, and flipped the deadbolt. The click echoed in the quiet flat, and I saw her shoulders drop just a fraction, as though that small sound was the first real reassurance she'd had all night. I led her to the sofa, gesturing for her to sit. I kept my distance, not crowding her, just enough space so she wouldn't feel cornered. Her backpack slipped off her shoulder and hit the floor with a soft thud, but she didn't pick it up. She simply sank into the cushions, staring at her hands as if they belonged to someone else. I could see her knuckles white from gripping the phone too tightly. "I'll be right back," I said quietly, heading to the kitchen. My hands shook a little as I rummaged through the cabinets. I found an old packet of hot chocolate mix tucked behind some forgotten tea bags, something I'd bought on a whim last winter. I boiled the kettle, the hiss filling the silence. Why was I shaking? Anger? Fear? I didn't know Freya's full story yet, but seeing her like that stirred something fiercely protective in me, something I hadn't felt in years. When the water was ready, I stirred in the mix, watching the powder dissolve into a steaming mug. It wasn't much, but it was warm, something to hold on to. I carried it back and set it on the coffee table in front of her. "Here, it might help." She looked up, her eyes still red-rimmed, and wrapped her fingers around the mug. She didn't sip it right away, just stared at the rising steam as though it were a lifeline pulling her back from wherever her mind had gone. I sat in the armchair across from her, far enough to give her room, yet close enough to let her know I wasn't going anywhere. We sat like that for what felt like forever. Not the awkward kind of quiet where you scramble for words, but the kind where you're simply waiting for her to feel safe enough to breathe. I kept glancing at the door, half expecting another knock, or worse, like I was standing guard. Freya's shoulders were hunched, her breathing shallow at first, but gradually they relaxed, just a fraction. Then, without prompting, she spoke. Her voice was hollow, as though it came from far away. "Marcus has been different lately." She tightened her grip on the blanket I draped over her shoulders. She flinched slightly when it touched her skin, a quick jerk that made my blood run cold. People don't flinch like that over nothing. It hit me then. This wasn't just a fight. This was deeper, scarier. I didn't push. I simply nodded, letting her set the pace. "Lately he's angry at everything," she continued, her words tumbling out slowly. "Work, money, the flat, and me." She paused, swallowing hard. "It started small. He'd check my phone, ask who I was texting, where I was going, what I was wearing. At first I thought it was just stress from his job, sales quotas, long hours. I made excuses for him, told myself it would pass." Her eyes welled up again, but she blinked it back. I stayed silent, my fist clenched in my lap. Excuses. I'd heard that before, from friends, from stories. It never passed. "Tonight we were supposed to go out," she said, her voice cracking a little. "That Italian place in the city center. I thought maybe it would be like old times, reset things. But he came home already furious. He'd been drinking, I could smell the whiskey. He started in on me right away, said I was a burden, that I didn't appreciate him enough. I tried to calm him down, suggested we stay in, order pizza instead. She let out a bitter laugh, short and empty. That made it worse. He accused me of ruining his plans, of always disappointing him. Freya's gaze drifted to the wall, as though she were reliving it. I said we should talk when he was calmer. That's when he grabbed my phone off the kitchen counter and threw it hard, right at the wall next to my head. It shattered, glass everywhere. I felt a chill run down my spine. The image hit me, Freya ducking, shards flying, his eyes. He realized what he'd done, but he didn't care. Not really. She set the mug down untouched and pulled the blanket tighter. I ran, grabbed my backpack, I always keep my laptop in there just in case, and bolted out the door. He didn't chase me. I sat on the stairs for a while, shaking, not knowing what to do. I called my cousin Laura in Birmingham. She said I could stay with her as long as I needed, but right then I couldn't face the coach ride. I just needed to breathe. Her words hung in the air, heavy. I leaned forward slightly. "You can stay here as long as you need, not just tonight." She looked at me, really looked, as though she couldn't believe someone would say that without strings attached. "Ben?" I shook my head. "No arguments. You take my room. I'll crash on the sofa." She protested weakly, but I insisted. I dug out a clean t-shirt and some sweatpants from my drawer, stuff that would swamp her, but at least be comfortable. She took them with a small nod, then surprised me by stepping forward and hugging me, quick and desperate, her head against my shoulder for just a second. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not asking too much." I stood there in the living room after she went into the bathroom, listening to the water run. The shower, I suppose. The sound was steady, grounding. In that moment, a promise formed in my mind. Whatever had happened, she would be safe. No questions, no pressure, just safe. I woke on the sofa to the faint aroma of coffee drifting from the kitchen. My neck was stiff from the awkward angle, and the blanket I'd grabbed was tangled around my legs. Grey London light filtered through the blinds. For a second, I forgot why I wasn't in my bed, but then it hit me. Freya. The events of that night rushed back like a cold wave. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, and padded to the kitchen. There she was, already up, fiddling with my ancient coffee maker. She was still in my oversized t-shirt and sweatpants, her hair pulled into a messy ponytail, eyes puffy, but clearer than they had been. She looked steadier, as though she'd reclaimed a bit of herself in the quiet hours. "Morning," I said, my voice gravelly from sleep. She turned, a small smile flickering on her lips. "Hey, sorry if I woke you. I couldn't sleep much longer, and I figured... Coffee?" No apology needed. Smells like forgiveness already. I tried to lighten it, and she let out a soft chuckle, the first real one since she'd shown up at my door. It was small, but it eased something in my chest. We moved to the kitchen table, the city slowly waking outside the window. Cars sloshing through puddles, distant horns. It felt almost normal, except for the weight in the air. Last night was the first time in ages I didn't lie there, wondering what mood he'd be in when I woke up, she said quietly, staring into her cup. That hit hard. I set my mug down. "How long has it been like this?" She took a breath, gathering the pieces. It crept in, at first just words, snapping at me over nothing, then the control. He'd make comments about what I wore, who I talked to, deleted my Instagram because he said I was seeking attention, told me to cut back on freelancing because it was a waste of time when he was paying most of the rent. Her voice grew steadier as she spoke, as though saying it out loud was reclaiming it. I stopped doing things I loved to avoid fights. Thought if I tried harder, it would go back to how it was at the beginning. "You're not stupid for that," I said gently. "That's how manipulation works. They make you doubt yourself until you're the one apologizing." She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. "Yeah, I see that now." Freya pulled out her phone, cracked screen from the throw, I guessed, and checked something. Laura texted back. "She'll meet me at the Birmingham coach station if I take the coach. I can stay with her as long as I need." "That's good. Solid plan." I paused. "You want to hang here a bit longer? Get your head straight before heading out?" She looked relieved. "Yeah, if that's okay. A few hours would help." We finished our coffee and I suggested stepping out for fresh air. My flat suddenly felt too small, too enclosed. There's a cafe down the block, decent pastries, no crowds. She agreed, throwing on her jacket over my clothes. The walk was short, the rain holding off for once. At the cafe, we grabbed a corner table. Freya ordered a latte and picked at a croissant while telling me she'd already emailed a lawyer friend of Laura's about the lease and getting her things out. "I don't want anything that's ours, just my clothes, my design gear, a few personal items." I nodded, admiring her resolve. Smart. Take it one step at a time. Back at the flat, I finally checked my own phone. 3 missed calls from an unknown number. Then a text. "Tell Freya to call me. We need to talk." My jaw clenched. Marcus, how the hell did he get my number? I deleted it without hesitation, my thumb hovering over the block button. I didn't tell Freya. Not yet. She was finally breathing easier. I didn't want to drag her back into panic. As the afternoon approached, she gathered her backpack. "I can make my own way to the station," she said. "No way. I'll drive you." I grabbed my keys before she could argue. Non-negotiable. The drive was quiet at first. Traffic light on the motorway. Freya stared out the window, watching the city fade into suburbs. "Ben, I don't know how to thank you for this. Just get me to Laura's safe." She turned to me, her voice soft. "If things get bad again, you'll pick up if I call, day or night." "Always," I said, no hesitation. "You know that." At the coach station, I pulled into the drop-off lane. She unbuckled, then leaned over for a hug, firmer than the night before, less desperate. "Take care of yourself," she whispered. "You too." I watched her wave as she headed inside, backpack slung over her shoulder until she disappeared through the doors. Driving home, the flat loomed in my mind. It would be silent again, no jazz, no footsteps, and for the first time that silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like an empty space I didn't want anymore. In the days that followed Freya's departure, I went through the motions at work, balancing ledgers, emailing reports, staring at screens until my eyes blurred. But my mind was next door. The empty flat mocked me every time I passed it in the hall. No music, no lights flickering late at night. Marcus vanished for a while. I didn't see his car in the lot, didn't hear any doors slamming. Part of me hoped he'd stay gone, but I knew better. Then, one morning as I headed out for work, there he was in the hallway. He looked rough, eyes bloodshot, stubble creeping in, and he reeked of stale whiskey even at that hour. He spotted me and straightened up, blocking my path like he owned the space. "Where is she?" he demanded, voice low and edged with something desperate. I kept my expression neutral, keys in hand. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Bullshit!" He stepped closer, close enough I could see the veins in his neck pulsing. "She came to you that night. I know she did." My pulse spiked, but I held steady. "She's not here. That's all I've got." I sidestepped him toward the lift, not breaking eye contact. He muttered something under his breath, a curse maybe, but didn't follow. The doors closed and I exhaled, fists clenched. In the car I texted Freya. "Ran into Marcus. He's looking for you. Be careful." Her reply came quick. "Thanks. I'm good here with Laura." Later on, my phone buzzed late one evening. I was on the sofa half watching some documentary when Freya's name lit up the screen. I answered on the second ring. "Ben." Her voice was different, clearer, more resolved, but still laced with tension. "Hey, everything okay?" "Yeah, mostly. Listen, I'm coming back to London soon to get my stuff. Laura's coming with me. We're hiring a van. I want you there if you can." "Of course," I said without thinking. "When?" "I'll be ready." The day of the move arrived, grey and drizzly. Typical London weather. I paced my flat, coffee in hand, until I heard the rumble of a van outside. Peeking through the blinds, I saw Laura pulling up in a white SUV towing a small removal trailer. She was tall with sharp features and a no-nonsense vibe, exactly how Freya had described her. She got out, scanning the building like she was assessing threats. I stepped outside to meet them. Laura spotted me first, extending a hand with a firm grip. "You must be Ben. Thanks for opening your door that night." "No problem," I said a bit awkwardly. "Glad I could help." Then Freya climbed out of the passenger side. I froze for a second. She'd cut her hair shorter, framing her face in soft waves, and she wore a burgundy sweater over jeans. She looked stronger, more grounded. Her eyes met mine, and she smiled. A real one, not forced. "Hi," she said, voice warm. "Say." I felt a dumb grin tugging at my lips, my hands suddenly unsure where to go. We headed up together, Freya leading with her key. The door to her old flat swung open, revealing a space that felt sterile now, modern furniture, clean lines, but cold, like it had never really been hers. Just my personal stuff, she said, grabbing boxes from the trailer we'd hauled up. Clothes, design tools, a few keepsakes, nothing that's theirs. We worked efficiently. Laura tackled the bedroom, packing clothes into suitcases. I helped Freya with the living room and kitchen. She moved with purpose, but I caught her pausing now and then, fingers lingering on items as though she was saying goodbye. In the kitchen, she opened a drawer and pulled out a set of old measuring spoons, dented metal, well worn. "These were my grandma's," she said softly, turning them over in her hands. "I used to bake with them all the time. Marcus hated the smell of sweets, said it was cloying. I stopped baking altogether." I took them from her gently. "Take them, and you'll bake whenever you damn well want to now." She looked at me, eyes glistening, then nodded, like she was reclaiming a piece of herself. We boxed them up, the clink of metal echoing in the quiet. We were nearly done, the van half-loaded downstairs, when we heard a car pull up outside, tires on wet pavement, then footsteps in the hall. Quick, heavy. A key rattled in the lock. The door burst open. Marcus stood there, face twisted in shock and rage as he took in the boxes and us. "What the hell is this?" Freya straightened, her voice steady. "I'm getting my things." He stepped inside, eyes darting around like he couldn't process it. "You can't just—" Instinct kicked in. I moved in front of Freya, blocking his path. "Stop right there," I said, low but firm. "We're just packing her stuff. We'll be out soon." Marcus's gaze locked on me, darkening. You're the one who put her up to this, filling her head with crap, turning her against me." "No one's turning anyone," I shot back. "She made her own choice." He lunged a step forward, face flushing red. Laura was already on her phone, holding it up to record. "One more step and I'm calling the police. This is harassment." That stopped him cold. He froze, breathing heavy, then shifted tactics, his voice turning pleading, almost whiny. "Freya, come on, just talk to me. 5 minutes. We can fix this." Freya stepped out from behind me, chin up. She looked at him long and hard, then shook her head. Simple. Final. "No." His mask cracked. "You were never good enough for me anyway." He spat venom in every word. Freya didn't flinch. She met his eyes. "You're right. I wasn't good enough for someone like you. I'm better than that." The air went still. Marcus's shoulders slumped, but he didn't move as we grabbed the last boxes and headed out. He just stood there watching, like the fight had drained out of him. We didn't look back. Down at the curb, loading the final things into the van, Freya turned to me. "Thank you for standing there, for everything." I pulled her into a quick hug. "You don't have to do this alone anymore." As they drove off, Laura at the wheel, Freya waving from the window, I stood in the rain, watching the tail lights fade. Freya was stronger now, piecing herself back together. And me? For the first time, I felt like I'd changed too, like that empty silence next door had pushed me to step up, to be there for someone. It wasn't just her fight anymore. Marcus moved out a few days after that confrontation. I heard the van rumbling in the parking lot one evening, saw him loading boxes through my window. No drama, no final showdown, just gone. The "To Let" sign went up on the door next to mine within the week. The silence returned, thick and unbroken, but it wasn't the peace I'd once chased. It was an echo, a hollow space that reminded me of Freya every time I walked past that empty flat. No jazz, no footsteps, just me in my routines. Yet they felt emptier now. Freya settled in with Laura in Birmingham. We texted regularly at first, daily check-ins, then every few days as she got busier. She'd update me on therapy sessions, learning to spot the red flags early. Turns out I ignored a lot. Some days were good. She'd send photos of her new freelance projects, like a logo for a local coffee shop that got printed on mugs. "First one in ages that feels like mine," she'd write, and I'd reply with a thumbs up, feeling a quiet pride swell in my chest. Other days were harder. Had a nightmare last night, woke up thinking I heard glass breaking. I'd respond simply, "I'm here if you need to talk." No pressure, just presence. She landed a part-time gig at a small design agency in Birmingham. Nothing fancy, but steady work that let her rebuild. "Feels good to have my own money again," she texted one afternoon. I could picture her smiling as she typed it. Me? I started making small changes, ones I hadn't realized I needed. I dragged a chair out to the balcony one rainy evening and sat there with my coffee, watching the city lights blur through the drizzle. It was cold, uncomfortable, but it beat staring at walls. I experimented in the kitchen, tried making pasta from scratch instead of my usual scrambled eggs, burned the first batch but nailed the second. I even browsed adoption sites for dogs, bookmarking a rescue mutt named Max with floppy ears. Thinking of getting a roommate, I texted Freya once, attaching the photo. She replied, "He looks like he'd keep you on your toes." It was silly, but these shifts felt like I was learning to share my space, to let life in beyond the quiet I'd built like a fortress. One evening, my phone buzzed late. Freya's name on the screen jolted me awake. "You up?" the text read. I called her back. "Hey, can't sleep." Her voice was a mix of nerves and excitement. "Ben, I signed up for a design conference in London. I want to see you if you're free." My heart skipped. "Of course." We set a date for dinner the first night. As I hung up, I lay there staring at the ceiling, a grin creeping across my face. It wasn't just about seeing her, it was the hope in her voice, the step forward. The day arrived and I got to the Italian restaurant early, pacing the pavement in the cool evening air. My hands were clammy. I hadn't been this nervous in years. When Freya walked in, I nearly didn't recognize her at first. She wore a simple blue dress that caught the light, her hair a bit longer now, waving softly around her shoulders. She looked present, not haunted, not fragile, alive. She spotted me and smiled, that real one that reached her eyes. "Hey." "Hi, bye." I stood, pulling out her chair like some awkward gentleman from an old film. We ordered pasta for her, risotto for me, and eased into small talk. Her job, the conference sessions, my latest kitchen disaster, overcooked chicken. It felt like old times, but underneath ran a current, electric and unspoken. Over dessert, tiramisu we shared, she set her fork down and met my eyes. "Ben, I didn't come just for the conference." I nodded, heart pounding. "I figured." She took a breath. "I've been working on myself. Therapy's helped me see I needed to heal, not just from Marcus, but from thinking I had to fix everything alone. That night at your door you gave me safety when I felt like the world was crumbling. But I didn't want to jump into something new out of need. I wanted to choose it because I was ready, because I want it." I reached across the table, taking her hand. It was warm, steady. "I've been waiting for you," she squeezed back. "Then don't wait anymore." We paid the bill and stepped out into the London night. Cool breeze off the river, streetlights casting golden pools on the pavements. We walked aimlessly, ending up in a small park overlooking the Thames. The London eye spun lazily in the distance, a reminder of the world moving on. Freya leaned against the railing. "We'll take it slow," she said. "Talk everything out. If I have a bad day, I'll tell you. If something feels off, you'll say so too." "Deal," I replied, stepping closer. She turned to me, eyes soft in the low light. "Kiss me." I didn't hesitate. The kiss was real, gentle at first, tentative, like testing waters we'd both been afraid of. Then deeper, her hands on my shoulders, mine at her waist. No fireworks like in films, just a quiet certainty. The kind that comes from surviving storms and choosing to stand together anyway. We broke apart, foreheads touching. "That felt right," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, smiling. It did. Back at her hotel, she paused at the door, keycard in hand. "Stay? Not for anything more. Just stay so I can fall asleep knowing you're here. Like that first night, but this time because I want it." I nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." Inside, the room was simple. King bed, city view through the curtains. She changed into pajamas while I kicked off my shoes and sat on the edge of the mattress. When she climbed in, I lay beside her, the space between us closing naturally. Her breathing slowed, evened out. No flinches, no sudden wakes, just peace. Lying there, listening to her steady rhythm, I stared at the ceiling. Love doesn't always start with grand gestures or sparks. Sometimes it knocks softly on your door in the middle of the night, scared and broken, and you answer with, "Come in." And sometimes, after the healing, it comes back stronger, choosing you right back. Freya stirred slightly, her hand finding mine in the dark. In the quiet aftermath of everything that unfolded with Freya, I came to realize one of life's most profound and heartbreaking lessons. True love rarely arrives with fireworks or perfect timing. It often begins with nothing more dramatic than answering a soft knock at your door in the dead of night, offering safety to someone who's been shattered by the very person they trusted most. Watching Freya step out of the shadows of control and fear taught me that the bravest thing any of us can do is simply be there, without questions or judgment, because that single act of quiet kindness can become the foundation for healing, for reclaiming your own life, and sometimes for discovering a love that feels steady and real. It reminded me how easily we can miss the red flags in relationships, the slow erosion of confidence, the isolation disguised as care, yet how powerfully we can rebuild when someone stands beside us without demanding anything in return. Freya's journey showed me that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the doorway to deeper connections, and that the silence we once craved can feel emptier than ever, once we've tasted what it means to share our space with someone who truly sees us. If this story has stirred something in your own heart, perhaps a memory of a friend who saved you, or the courage to walk away from what no longer serves you, then please leave a comment below and tell me, what's the most important lesson a friend ever taught you in your darkest moment? And if these tales of resilience, quiet courage, and second chances from the streets of London have touched you, do hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You'll never miss another heartfelt story like this. Your support truly means the world. Let's keep sharing these moments together.